Hello, everyone, and welcome back. I want you to just stop and think for a moment about your morning routine. For a lot of us, especially as we get a little older, our mornings, well, they're kind of a quiet, comforting sanctuary, aren't they? We've built these routines up over decades. It's the familiar sound of the alarm clock, it's that grounded feeling of your feet finally hitting the floor, and oh, the smell of that very first cup of coffee brewing in the kitchen. It feels safe, it feels like home. But what if I told you that the absolute most dangerous part of your entire day might actually be those exact first 2 hours after you wake up? It's a sobering thought, I know, but if you're over 60, there are incredibly common, seemingly harmless things that millions of us do every single morning that may be quietly, behind the scenes, increasing our risk of a stroke. And the crazy part? Some of these habits are things you probably think are perfectly healthy. Now, please, take a deep breath. I want to reassure you right out of the gate, we absolutely are not here to panic today. Not at all. We are here to learn together. Because the beautiful truth is, with just a few really gentle, completely free tweaks to those first 2 hours you're awake, you might just save your own life.
Okay, let's dive right into this and walk through a typical morning step by step. We'll start with why the morning hours are so crucial. Then we'll cover getting out of bed safely, navigating your medications and movement, hidden traps in your breakfast, critical warning signs you can't ignore, and finally, how small changes bring massive results. Section 1, the most dangerous hours. Let's look at exactly why our mornings matter most. So naturally, you might assume that the most dangerous time for a stroke or a major heart event would be, say, when you're out exercising really vigorously, or maybe when you're incredibly stressed out, or sitting in some frustrating traffic jam in the afternoon. But the clinical reality is actually entirely different. The most dangerous time of your entire day is actually the first 60 minutes right after you open your eyes. In fact, the research shows that your stroke risk is literally 3 times higher in those 2 hours after waking up than at any other point in your day. 3 times. Now, again, don't let this cause you anxiety. We have to view this as a powerful window of opportunity to protect ourselves. Think about how your blood pressure works. Over a 24-hour cycle, your blood pressure goes through massive shifts. When you're in a deep, restful sleep, say around midnight, your blood pressure drops down to its absolute lowest point. Cardiologists actually have a name for this. They call it the nocturnal dip. Your body is just deeply at peace. But then, as you prepare to wake up, your system dramatically shifts gears. To get you out of bed, your body releases this massive surge of cortisol and adrenaline. It's kind of like stepping on the gas pedal of a car to get the engine revving. And this causes your blood pressure to rise very sharply. This rapid transition, going straight from the deep rest of that nocturnal dip all the way up to the high pressure of the morning surge, is exactly why cardiovascular events peak during this specific window. Your body is just undergoing a massive physiological shift before you've even had a chance to pour your coffee. And to make matters just a little bit more complicated, we really have to talk about the physical state of your blood when you first wake up. Just think about it practically for a second. You've been lying relatively still in your bed for 7, maybe 8 hours. During that entire time, you've been breathing continuously, maybe you've been sweating under the blankets, but you haven't taken in a single drop of fluid. Because of this very natural, mild overnight dehydration, your blood actually becomes what we call viscous. That's just a medical way of saying it gets thick. It is literally thicker at this moment than it will be at any other point in your day. Let's use a simple analogy. Imagine your heart as a mechanical pump. Now, it is incredibly easy for a pump to move a thin liquid, like water, right? But think about trying to pump thick, heavy syrup through those same pipes. It takes a lot more force. It's much harder. So right when your body is experiencing that intense morning blood pressure surge we just talked about, your poor heart is also being forced to pump this thicker, more viscous blood. It really creates this perfect storm of pressure inside your cardiovascular system. Section 2, getting out of bed. Let's talk about the absolute safest way to start your day. All right, so now that we really understand the internal environment, that morning pressure surge combined with the thicker blood, let's smoothly transition to the very first physical action you take every single day, the actual act of getting out of bed. Here's the thing. As we get older, particularly once we pass 60, the walls of our blood vessels naturally become just a little bit stiffer. They simply aren't as bouncy and elastic as they were when we were, say, 45. Because of this stiffness, when you sit up or jump up out of bed suddenly, your circulation just cannot equalize the pressure fast enough. Gravity instantly pulls your blood downward, it pools briefly in your lower body, and your heart suddenly realizes, oh no, I need to get blood up to the brain. So it frantically compensates with an aggressive, much harder pump against those stiff vessel walls. So, the crucial point here is habit number 1. It is so simple, but it gives your body a beautiful, gentle buffer. When you wake up tomorrow morning, do not immediately stand up. Just don't do it. Instead, I want you to simply sit on the edge of your bed for 30 to 60 seconds. That's the whole habit. Just sit there, maybe take a few deep, calming breaths, and let your circulation adjust safely. This tiny, less than a minute pause gives your blood pressure the exact time it needs to stabilize, totally preventing that dangerous, frantic spike from your heart. It is just a wonderfully simple, zero-cost way to show your heart a little kindness first thing in the morning.
Okay, moving right along to habit number 2. Once you have safely stood up, what is the very first thing you do? Well, if you're like millions of other folks out there, you probably make a beeline straight for the kitchen to pour a hot cup of coffee. But let's pause and remember what we just learned about your blood being thick and viscous from overnight dehydration. Caffeine is what's known as a mild diuretic. All that really means is that it signals your kidneys to release more fluid. So, before you have replenished even a single ounce of the water you lost overnight, that beloved cup of coffee is actively pulling even more fluid out of your system. It is literally keeping your blood dangerously thick right when your heart needs it to be thin. Now, I'm definitely not telling you to give up your morning coffee, I wouldn't dare. But the life-saving habit here is to simply drink 12 ounces of plain water within 10 minutes of waking up before you touch that coffee. Think of it as a prerequisite for your coffee. This is hands down the lowest cost, highest leverage change you can possibly make to immediately normalize your blood thickness and protect your heart. Section 3, medications and movement. Let's see why timing is absolutely everything. Let's continue our morning journey together. You've sat on the edge of your bed, you've enjoyed your large glass of water, and now we shift into the very common routine of taking our daily pills. Now, if you happen to be on antihypertensive or blood pressure medications, I really need you to lean in, because this part is specifically for you. For decades and decades, standard medical advice was just a blanket statement: take your blood pressure pill in the morning. And honestly, for a lot of patients, that is still perfectly good, solid advice. But as we've just learned together, the timing of your body's natural blood pressure rhythm is incredibly specific to the morning hours. If your medication happens to peak in your system and then fade out just before your body's natural morning surge hits, well, you might be experiencing a very dangerous gap in your coverage at the exact moment your heart needs that protection the most. Now, I want to be crystal clear with you here. Absolutely, do not go and change your medication timing on your own. Please do not do that. But rather, take this exact specific question to your doctor at your next visit. Ask them, given my specific medication and my unique blood pressure pattern, is morning timing actually optimal for me? It is a fascinating conversation that most patients simply never think to have, but it is deeply, deeply worth asking to ensure you are fully protected. Now, our fourth habit revolves around how you physically get your body moving to start the day. Let me be very direct and affirm something. Regular morning exercise is a wonderfully, undeniably protective habit for your long-term cardiovascular health that is not up for debate. However, jumping straight from your bed into a vigorous, high-intensity exercise routine within 20 minutes of waking up, well, the deck is heavily stacked against you. Think about it. Your blood pressure is naturally surging. Your blood is still on the thicker side, and your stress hormones are peaking. Adding a rapid, intense heart rate spike on top of all of that is a genuinely risky move for anyone over 60. Instead, the habit here is to simply insert a 10-minute low-intensity buffer. While you're drinking your water, just do some gentle walking around the house. Maybe do a little light stretching or some really simple household movements like wiping down the counter. Just give your system 10 minutes to naturally normalize and wake up before you jump into any vigorous activity. It makes a world of difference. Section 4, breakfast and pain relief. Let's uncover some hidden traps in our healthy choices. So as we finally walk into the kitchen for breakfast, we very often fall into traps. And I want to be clear, it's not because we are intentionally making bad choices. It's because the food industry has spent billions of dollars marketing certain items to us as completely healthy and heart-safe. We've been trained to trust those brightly colored labels that say low-fat or heart-healthy whole grain. But when we peel back the shiny marketing and look at the actual clinical numbers, the hidden danger is pretty staggering. Without even trying, it is incredibly easy to consume over 1,000 milligrams of sodium before the clock even strikes 8 in the morning. And you're doing this while eating what you genuinely believe is a healthy breakfast. So why does this matter so much? Well, elevated blood pressure is the single largest modifiable risk factor for having a stroke. And sodium directly, physically raises your blood pressure. So during those exact same morning hours when your body's internal blood pressure is already naturally surging, eating a highly salted breakfast piles even more pressure right on top of it. It creates a severe compounding effect at the absolute worst possible time of day. Let's look at some real-world examples so you can see what I mean.
Take 2 slices of standard whole grain sandwich bread. It looks healthy, right? But those 2 slices can hide nearly 300 milligrams of sodium. Or how about a single serving of deli turkey? You know, the kind proudly labeled 97% fat-free. That can pack up to 500 milligrams of sodium. Even a simple, seemingly innocent packet of flavored instant oatmeal can have almost 300 milligrams. To put that into perspective, the American Heart Association recommends that adults over 60 with hypertension should aim for no more than 1,500 milligrams of sodium per day. So, with this so-called healthy breakfast, you have almost hit your entire daily limit before you have even put your shoes on to leave the house. So habit number 5 is incredibly straightforward. I kindly urge you to just check the nutrition labels on your bread and your standard breakfast items this week. You don't have to change everything overnight, but just look at the back of the package. Awareness is the absolute first step to making a life-saving change. Now, right around the same breakfast time, millions of older adults reach right into the medicine cabinet for habit number 6. Morning joint stiffness, maybe a bit of knee pain, or a stiff lower back. It's incredibly common. And our automatic reflex is just to swallow an over-the-counter NSAID pain reliever, like ibuprofen or naproxen, so we can get on with our day. But I want to explain the exact physical mechanism of why that is so dangerous in the morning. You see, NSAIDs actually cause your kidneys to artificially retain sodium and water. This retention physically increases your overall blood volume. It's like pumping extra water into a garden hose. When you have more fluid volume trying to squeeze through those older, slightly stiffer blood vessels we talked about, your blood pressure absolutely skyrockets, and it's happening right in the middle of your morning pressure surge. Conversely, a different type of medication, like acetaminophen, handles that joint pain beautifully without causing that dangerous sodium and water retention. Now, what's really interesting here is how practical this is. I want to tell you a relatable, real-world story about a patient named David to show you the power of this one tiny adjustment. David was 71 years old, and he was struggling with terribly uncontrolled blood pressure. His doctors were puzzled. They kept adding to his prescriptions, adjusting his blood pressure medications, but honestly, nothing was working. His numbers stayed dangerously high. Well, it turned out that David also happened to be taking 2 ibuprofen every single morning for his aching knees. It was just a habit. He didn't even think to mention it. When his doctors finally realized this, they made one tiny, completely free adjustment. They didn't add more expensive heart pills to his routine. They just had him switch his morning ibuprofen over to acetaminophen. And the results? Within just 6 weeks, David's systolic blood pressure dropped a massive 12 points. They simply removed one bad morning habit, and it profoundly, dramatically changed his entire health trajectory. That is the power you have right in your medicine cabinet. Section 5, Critical Warning Signs. Let's talk about the vital importance of listening to your body. We are now moving into what is perhaps the most crucial part of our explainer today, how to monitor how you actually feel when you wake up. So often, we get so stuck in our routines that we just power through the morning grogginess. We've got things to do, but gently dismissing these subtle physical signs our bodies are trying to give us, just out of sheer habit, is exactly what turns a manageable warning into an absolute catastrophe. The vast majority of people who suffer a major, life-altering stroke actually receive subtle warnings beforehand. One of the most common is called a transient ischemic attack, or TIA. This is frequently and very accurately referred to as a warning stroke. The symptoms of a TIA look exactly like a full stroke, but here is the key tricky difference. They are temporary. They might last for just 2 minutes or maybe 20 minutes, and then they resolve completely. You feel totally normal again. And because the symptoms just vanish, people brush them off. They think, oh, I just stood up too fast, or my eyes are just playing tricks on me. But please listen to me. A TIA is a blaring fire alarm from your body. It signals that an incredibly high-risk 48-hour window has just opened up ahead of you. Defining this clearly isn't meant to frighten you, it is meant to reassure you. Having this knowledge gives you the immense, profound power to act in time. Which brings us to habit number 7, paying close, respectful attention to these subtle morning warning signals. What do they look like? Well, it might be a sudden headache that feels completely different from any normal headache you've ever experienced in your life. It could be a brief visual disturbance, maybe a weird blind spot in the corner of your eye, a strange flicker of light, or a sudden moment of double vision while you're pouring your water. Perhaps it manifests as a few minutes of really strange morning confusion where you just can't get your thoughts straight. Or you go to pull the covers back, and your arm or your hand just feels briefly numb or unusually, strangely heavy. It is tragically, dangerously easy to mistake these subtle signals for simply having a bad night's sleep, or to just wave your hand and say, oh, I'm just getting older. Please do not do that. Trust your body. You've lived in it for a long time. If something feels genuinely off to you, it probably is.
I want to say this next part to you with absolute clarity and with the care I would give my own family. If you or a loved one experience any of those symptoms we just talked about, even if they only last for a single minute, and even if they completely go away and you feel 100% fine afterward, do not wait to see how you feel in an hour. Call 911 immediately. Do not drive yourself to the hospital, and do not let your spouse drive you. Call the professionals. Getting an immediate medical evaluation changes the entire outcome of your life. And if you know someone, maybe a stubborn spouse, an aging parent, or a dear friend who routinely dismisses their health, or maybe they pop an ibuprofen every morning and never drink their water, please gently share this explainer with them right now. Don't wait. You just might be the reason they save their own life. Section 6, Small Changes, Big Results. It's time to take control of your morning. As we begin to wrap up our time together today, I really want to leave you feeling uplifted, encouraged, and incredibly empowered. Yes, the morning hours carry a higher baseline risk for your heart. That is a clinical fact. But look at what we've learned. You now have the total power to influence these factors starting the very moment you wake up tomorrow morning. You don't need a medical degree to do this. You don't need to go out and buy fancy, expensive supplements. And you certainly don't need to completely upend your entire life. You just need to slowly apply the simple adjustments we've discussed. So, let's slowly and deliberately recap your new, deeply safe morning routine. Tomorrow morning, when that alarm goes off, sit up slowly and wait 60 seconds on the edge of the bed. Just breathe. Then walk to the kitchen and drink 12 ounces of plain water before you even start that coffee maker. Later today, write down a quick note to ask your doctor if your blood pressure pill timing is actually optimal for you. When you get moving in the morning, give your body a gentle 10-minute buffer before any real vigorous exercise. Take a quick peek at the hidden sodium labels on your favorite breads and breakfast items. If your joints are aching, reach for acetaminophen instead of your usual ibuprofen. And finally, never, ever dismiss temporary warning signs just because they seem to go away. Remember, absolutely none of these 7 habits cost a single penny. Not one. They don't require a prescription. They just require the right information applied consistently because you care enough about yourself to make the change. I want to read this quote to you, and I really want you to truly, deeply absorb it. Higher risk is not inevitable, and it is not the same as something you cannot influence. That is so beautifully true. You are not simply at the mercy of your age or the clock on your wall. By arming yourself with the right information, you are taking an active, immensely powerful role in your own longevity. One small, thoughtful change to your morning routine can quite literally alter your health trajectory forever. It gives you the gift of years, more time to spend doing exactly what you love with the people you cherish the most. So, as we close, I will leave you with this final provocative thought to ponder today. Which of these 7 very remarkably simple morning habits will you commit to changing tomorrow to protect the rest of your life? Think about it. Choose just one to start with. If you found this explainer helpful, please hit the subscribe button so you never miss out on this kind of structured, life-saving information. Leave a comment below telling me which habit you're going to change first. I love reading them. And please be sure to share this explainer with someone you care about. Thank you so much for spending your valuable time with me today. I truly hope this was exactly the conversation you needed. Stay safe, have a beautiful morning tomorrow, and I will see you next time.